Back on live. All right, sorry guys. If you hear this quick break, it was an edit, and we lost the YouTube feed. Now we're back.
Elevator music. Cue elevator music. A short break.
We were talking about.
I have no idea what we were talking about.
Carlton, and then we were talking about the young kids.
Oh, we were talking about Tata Martino.
Tata Martino.
I was talking about his family situation.
Family situation. Okay, we're rolling.
Okay.
All right.
We're back.
Family situation.
We're back, folks.
Did you get the link back up?
It's a different link.
Okay. So will this work on the?
We got one. You're back, Elliot. Good man.
Oh.
All right.
Points for Elliot.
Points for Elliot. All right. Let's move on. Oh, I think there's nothing we're going to say about Tata Martino that we already even said. So let's move on to this massive game for Atlanta United against the Red Bulls of New York that obviously doesn't go Atlanta's way. 2-0 loss to Atlanta. A match in which Atlanta just seemed completely undone. Well, at least in my opinion, seemed completely undone by the Red Bulls. Didn't know how to break the press. Didn't really know how to respond. It really felt like Atlanta United just didn't know how to punch back for most of the match. They had moments that they could have maybe changed the momentum of the match, but for the most part, I think it was all Red Bulls game. You know what? They came in, they did what they wanted to do, and they did just that.
It's quite obvious that it was the Red Bulls were the ones who came out and just basically dominated the game. I think that this game could have gone a very different way, though, and it was hard for me to see during and immediately after the match, but I'm starting to understand more now where Tata was coming from in this one. My opinion on it was just that Tata had told us that a draw was a fine result, and we knew that, of course. You get a draw here, you basically lock up everything you want to lock up. You would have to like win one more game this season or something like that. So a draw was fine, and I guess the logic in me says that you should kind of concede some things in terms of your playing style and whatnot to make sure you're pragmatic and you get that point that you need. But Tata's been adamant that he doesn't want to sacrifice the style that he plays in, and so with that in mind, he instead tried to basically play through Red Bull's pressure and thinking that if they were able to successfully do that, they were going to create some really good chances, not just like decent chances. Like they were going to like if they can break it, they were going to really break it and create like 1v1s.
I don't really understand. But what makes you think that if you haven't beaten them in 3 tries, playing the exact same style that you faced them in, and haven't I mean, I'm not gonna say haven't looked great because you've had good moments against the Red Bulls, but for the most part they've had your number as long as you've been in existence. Why would you think that going in with the same kind of mindset would change things? Sure, most times you played them, it was in a back 4. In this case, it was back 3, 5 in the middle. But it really didn't change much. It was more the attitude than anything else that Atlanta United didn't really, at least in my opinion, didn't seem to change. Didn't seem to take away from the from previous meetings with the team. It seemed like they went in there thinking they were going to, at the very least, put up an even fight without even trying, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, they definitely took a different approach to this one, in my opinion. Of they didn't try to combat Red Bulls in midfield. They tried to basically absorb all that pressure and really draw Red Bulls onto them, and then try to like hit them quickly over the top and break on them. And we saw Miguel Almiron get a one-on-one opportunity that could have changed the game pretty. Not early in the game, but midway through the first half, had a great 1v1 chance against Robles, and he just kind of did a classic Miguel Almiron type of thing in front of goal and just kind of screwed it up. And that's an area where maybe Pity Martinez does a little better than Almiron there. But I think those were the kinds of chances that Tata kind of envisioned, and I think that his theory was that if they could score on one of those early, then maybe things go a little differently in that game for them. I'm just trying to speculate because me personally, I would have played it a different way. I would have played it more in midfield. I would have played it, I would not have been wanting to risk giving the ball away to Red Bulls so deep in your own territory to the point where if you do give it away, Red Bulls are right in with a chance, like right on your doorstep, essentially.
What I expected is for Atlanta United to essentially do what the Red Bulls. You didn't even have to press the back line, but you wanted to force Red Bulls to circulate the ball, to control most of the possession, try to work their way up the field rather than creating turnover, making life difficult as hell for Atlanta United in the midfield, and capitalizing off of those turnovers and off of that switch in momentum. It seemed like everything in the midfield was covered. It almost seemed like they were playing with like 13 men on the field.
Yeah.
Because at times it almost seemed unfair how quickly they were able to get on the players, how much they were able to close down in terms of passing lanes, passing angles, really anything, any kind of movement for Atlanta United to really get forward. It seemed like most of it was stifled by Red Bulls as soon as those passes, as soon as those as soon as the ball was kind of gathered.
Yeah,
it almost didn't make sense.
It's a testament to Red Bulls, the system they have in place. I always feel like that's a good, that's a good, easy gauge on a game. Is like if there's one team that seems like they have more players on the field, then they have just like a better, more cohesive system in place that they've been able to implement.
And I think there were a lot of matches where Atlanta United's opponents probably thought, it seemed like Atlanta United had 14, 15 on the pitch. But everyone's jumping on Tata Martino and the approach and all these things. And to me, you just lost your 1v1 battles. I mean, you Darlington Nagby. Yeah, you guys, league media, you want to jump all over the manager like always, but I felt like Atlanta United in the first half in particular, I thought it was even half. It wasn't pretty. Actually, I take that back. Even in the run of play, the problem was you're giving up too many chances from set pieces. So New York Red Bulls obviously on top in that manner. But I didn't get the feeling, yes, the high press was working, but I didn't get the feeling Atlanta United were getting suffocated. I didn't feel like it was chance after chance, wave after wave of attack. And I did feel like there were times where Atlanta United got out and got on the break and looked dangerous. Joe, you referred to the Almiron miss, which was the biggest chance of the entire first half. And then there were several times where I think you broke into space and just didn't have the quality to find that final ball. One play that comes to mind is Joseph Martinez playing Julian Gressel into the box down the right side, and Gressel gets shouldered off the ball. There's another couple times where Almiron gets through and misses on the final ball. Again, that could be maybe an example of where you would want PT Martinez in that position. But to me, this was not Tata Martino. I keep hearing people saying, what was the plan B? To me, I didn't get the sense that your tactics were losing out. I just got the sense that you're losing those individual 1v1 battles on the pitch. That was, to me, what this match came down to.
Well, I really disagree that it was like somewhat even in the first half. I mean, you look at the amount of passes in the final third for each team. Atlanta United had 12, Red Bulls had 64.
Sure, but
22 attempts to 81. Atlanta had like one completed pass in Red Bulls half by like the 7th minute. Yeah. They couldn't get out. Nearly half of Red Bulls passes, all their passes in the game happened in Atlanta's final third, 131 out of 284. So, that's where I really didn't like to see. I didn't like to see Red Bulls that close to our goal. When all we needed was a point, I wanted us to be playing the game further away in midfield.
Which, then in that case, then I think what you need to do is go to 4 in the back. Because if the Atlanta United 3 in the back formation throughout the season has conceded possession and looked to hit teams on the break. So it's not those numbers, while they're shocking, Joe, not entirely surprising. If you're looking to get out and counter against a high pressing team, they're gonna spend most of the time in possession in your half. The problem to me is you didn't have the quality to complete those passes on the other side of the pitch. But if you look at chances in the run of play, Red Bulls chances are coming from set pieces. So I still think run of play, it's about individual qualities, not a strategical or tactical misstep.
All right. Well, if we want to talk about individuals, Elliot B then asked a really good question that I was also asking, and he says, should Escobar start the game?
And we agree on this.
That was a big issue that we both had with Jeff Lorenowitz and Michael Parkhurst starting next to each other on the back line.
Yeah, I don't understand that one either.
I just don't think you can play a back 3 without Escobar.
I don't think you can play a back 3 with those two next to each other. Yeah. I think you can play a back 3 with those two both in the lineup if Jeff is in midfield. I really don't like them next to each other. It really doesn't put whoever's playing in the right back right center back spot, which is usually Lorenowitz, just not putting them in a good position based on their skill set. I mean, his skill set is to be able to read a game, and when he's in that position, usually he's having to lean on physical attributes.
Yeah. It just seems like Escobar's built for that role.
Yeah,
perfectly.
Absolutely.
And why you wouldn't, I don't know what the deal, I don't know if he's hurt or coming back from injury or still tired. I don't know what the deal is, but
I've always felt
that seems to not make sense.
I've always felt it's the perfect position for Escobar, because when he's playing at right back, I feel like he feels like he has an onus to get forward and like to be like an attacking, overlapping right back, which, maybe that is what Tata Martino wants out of a right back and a back four, but that doesn't really suit Escobar.
Doesn't suit his game.
Yeah. And I feel like when he's playing at that right center back, he has kind of an understanding that he's a true defender, right? He's there to defend, but he's still he has a little bit of freedom to jump into midfield and win a ball if he needs to. So I really like him in that position. I totally agree with you. I think it's his best position. And I don't know if I'd even trust Escobar like as a center back in the back two. But in the back three, I love him.
Go ahead.
And I think another thing that he does is, like you said, Joe, he's good in those 1v1 situations as opposed to Laurentowicz, who's more of a read the game type. When you're playing that right center back role, and Julian Gressel is the right wing back, Julian Gressel wants to get high up the pitch, and you're going to be left in a lot of 1v1 situations that he's much more equipped to deal with. So that was maybe the one thing that confused me too. And we didn't hear he was on the bench, correct?
Who?
Escobar was on the bench.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's been kind of playing sporadically, and obviously Tata loves Jeff Laurentowicz, but I think it might be time for Laurentowicz to see the bench at least when you're going three at the back, because you've got to have a player like Escobar there for a few reasons, but because he does well with the 1v1 battles. Also, has a little more pace. If you play Parkhurst and Laurentowicz in a back three, that's not a lot of pace.
I have a hot take. Jeff Laurentowicz as the center back and the middle center back in the back three.
That could happen.
I have not been impressed with Michael Parkhurst in quite some time.
Well, he played there against RSL, right?
Jeff Laurentowicz played there. Yeah.
I just don't think he's done anything bad enough to where he the captain of the team deserves to be kicked out of the starting lineup. Now, this is strictly speaking.
I know he's the captain. That's why this is such a hot take. I mean, if he wasn't the captain, it would not be a hot take because if Jeff Laurentowicz were the captain, not Michael Parkhurst,
you would still ask why.
They've played about an even amount. They've both been basically they've been in the starting 11 every game since Tata Martino's been here, essentially.
Yeah, that's true.
So it basically comes down to the fact that Michael Parkhurst wears the armband, and that's why it's a tough decision. And the fact that Jeff Laurentowicz is basically not your typical center back. He's been playing in midfield when he's been here. But I just thought he looked great playing in that role against RSL. I thought the defense as a whole, that was one of their best performances. First clean sheet against a playoff team, and I don't know, it felt like a long time. Yeah. I'm not sure how long it had actually been, but I thought it was a great performance.
And just a solid performance back to front. And you mentioned Laurentowicz playing in the middle of the back three, and the reason that suits him is the middle center back in the back three is basically playing as a sweeper. So his job is to read the game, whereas the other two are more playing 1v1 defensively. So that's why that suits Jeff's role. Jeff's kind of skill set in a back three would be anchoring the back three. My question for you, Joe, Parkhurst is struggling a little bit, but what specifically bothers you about his play right now? I mean, do you think he's just breaking down physically a little bit?
Yeah, I feel like he gets bodied all the time. I feel like whenever a striker really gets physical with him, I think we saw Danny Hosen do it. He just doesn't stand up against those guys.
Sure.
And it's not like that. Technically, he's good. He can pass the ball. He can move. He knows where to be. But I just feel like he gets beaten physically, and that's why I kind of prefer Jeff Laurentowicz, because he's just a bigger, stronger, more physically robust kind of guy. Even though I think Jeff Laurentowicz is a little bit older than Michael Parkhurst. I don't know. I just feel like some level of comfort there with Jeff Laurentowicz that I don't feel with Michael Parkhurst. And I don't know how to describe it other than Parkhurst gets body.
35 Jeff Laurentowicz, 34 Michael Parkhurst.
It's an interesting take.
One of the other players that kind of took a lot of heat, and really for more than just one moment in the match, Chris McCann obviously has the really bad handball in the box that puts Red Bulls up 1-0. Outside of that, at least in my opinion, he was one of the reasons, both him and Julian Gressel, and I'm not just singling out McCann for this, but I think both McCann and Gressel both helped create chaos for Red Bulls in the midfield.
Yeah.
I think making that area, that middle third of the field, as compact and as congested as it did, really limited Nagby, really limited what Remedi could do, really limited what Almiron could do. And I don't think McCann doesn't help at all. Julian at least has the ability and has the willingness and the kind of the want to get up the field and try to help in the attack. McCann doesn't. McCann, as soon as he crosses the midfield, he's looking to position himself so he can cross the ball into the midfield. This is one of those games where I thought, I understand that there's a level of not only just seniority, but he's been playing in that position for a while now. It's kind of his to lose, which you could argue he has lost it. I would have loved to have seen George Bello. And had he not played in the last game, I would have totally screamed for him to play in this game. I would love to have seen George Bello just with his ability to go forward, with his ability to play quick passes, with his ability to move quickly, period. To have seen that kind of combination between him and Almiron, and to see that combination between him and Joseph, to have been a better outlet for guys in the middle of the field. I think that would have opened up some space in the middle of the field. I don't think it's the culprit or the main reason that Atlanta United lost this game, because again, they had chances, they had moments to at the very least pull a draw out of this. But again, both McCann and Gressel not being able to move up as freely as they wanted to, not being able to get involved in the attack as much as they wanted to. I mean, Joseph Martinez had 19 touches, no shots. No shots on goal, no key passes, nothing.
Yeah.
He was as non-existent as I've ever seen him.
So it's interesting.
And sorry, just to go back, yeah. I think the part of the problem was the congestion in the midfield. If this game is played out in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think whoever wins the midfield in both games, is it both games? Yeah, both games. Is going to come out clear winners. Whoever can dominate that middle of the field is the clear winner.
Yeah, and so it's funny what you mentioned about Bello, and him just being like a more technical player, more physically, just quicker, faster, can challenge somebody with the speed. I talked to some of the players about Darlington Nagby a couple weeks ago, and like basically asking how you fit him into a midfield, because do you fit him in with Remedi? Is that a strong enough pairing? Just Nagby and Remedi in a two-man midfield. And the players said yes, and that's basically because not necessarily because of the defensive strength that Nagby has, but the fact that he can retain possession and hold the ball and get you out of bad situations with his technique. That has that gives you something that he doesn't even need his defending for or strength for. And I kind of feel the same way with Bello, in the fact that he's just a more technical player than a guy like Chris McCann. So in a game like this Red Bulls game where you're getting pressed to hell, he can just help you maneuver your way out of those situations a little bit better than Chris McCann was able to. I mean, Chris McCann he offers you like
better experience, I guess.
He's tall. He's taller. He gives you better defending on set pieces. Probably maybe better defending just.
He commits a handball pretty good.
Yeah, so even that's questionable. So, yeah, I'm with you. I would have liked to see Bello there, and I totally agree with you, with what you said about the fullbacks. I just thought that we weren't able to challenge the opposition fullbacks, and that really kind of set the stage for everything.
This is what happens when you get dominated by the high press, is those wing backs basically become left and right backs, and it turns into a back five. Your striker, like you said, Eric, gets isolated, can't get on the ball. Nagby, I think he had 39 touches in this game for a player that is supposed to be all over the ball. That's congestion through the middle of the field. So you look down the stat lines, and it's just a matter of Red Bulls style winning out over Atlanta United's, and when that happens, Martinez isn't on the ball, the wingbacks aren't getting onto the ball in good areas. But I do think the Bello comment is interesting, just because he has the speed and athleticism just to reach that area higher up the pitch than Chris McCann, who the last thing Chris McCann is a wingback. In some senses, I feel for him. I think 100% the expectation this year was he would provide. I thought Mikey Ambrose and he early in the season was a good left wing back pairing, because you have one in Ambrose that likes to get forward, more of that kind of left-sided defender in a 3-5-2, and McCann, who would be more of a traditional left fullback. So I thought that was
I really thought for the most part, I thought
was a good like platoon kind of.
Yeah, kind of a utility guy.
Yeah.
I honestly thought he probably had the same conversation over in the offseason as I assume Atlanta had it with Lorenowitz. In the sense that
that
we
your
were going to play
rotation.
definitely not as much. They were going to get in the games, platoon when they needed to, and I think they just.
And in both those guys' cases, they ended up starting
Right.
almost every match.
I just don't understand that with. This is one of the reasons I'm getting on the top during this match. It's because again you know what your limits are when it comes to McCann at left back. And I guess with Lorenowitz at right center back. Why, in that case, would you start this game in a 3-man back line? That's what I don't understand. If you know you're limited there, if you know that basically out of McCann, all you're going to get is a guy that comes maybe up to midfield, maybe a little further than midfield, maybe just to the edge of that final third, and that's about it. That's not enough to stretch out that back line to give Joseph and room to breathe.
It's true. It's 100% true.
You know it's not going to happen. So why do you? And I'm not saying. I mean, they would still push up in a back four, but at least you're forcing their right backs to at least move up the field a little further than normal.
And you're also going to be able to press Red Bulls a little bit more in possession with a back four than a back three.
Yeah.
In the back. So I think the answer to your question, I'm just speculating, Eric, is kind of twofold. First of all, with that kind of 3-5-2, 3-4-3, 3-4-1-2, whatever you want to call it. It's been primarily a counter-attacking direct formation for Atlanta United. So the hope is, and we kind of mentioned this last week, that if you can break that initial press in the middle of the pitch, you're going to have a ton of space for Tito, Almiron, and Martinez in the attacking half. But it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I was the outside of the 3 center backs, Atlanta's player with the most pass attempts was Bragazan.
It's horrific. That is horrific. And again, that shows you high press working. You're having to force the ball back to your goalkeeper.
He had 40 pass attempts. Miguel Almiron had 23.
That's scary stuff. I mean, that's scary stuff.
But it just shows that it was just cut off. The play was cut off to Almiron, Tito, and Joseph. Joseph had 10 passes.
God, 10. I mean, that's tough. I mean, and that's one of the reasons those guys maybe struggle with the lack of quality. They're not on the ball.
I wonder if Joseph had a single successful dribble moving up the field.
He had a couple. He had the flip to Miggy where Miggy was offside, and
all right, never mind.
There were a couple. He actually had a great tackle. He had a great slide tackle.
I went too extreme.
But no, I think a player like Joseph Martinez, if you can take away the midfield, he's not particularly effective. I mean, he's a goal scorer.
Yeah.
If he has to come all the way back to get it, isn't it?
He was asked to play with his back to goal. Clearly in this match.
Well, I think they want to hold up the play.
Maybe not asked, but he was forced to. And Martinez, when it's back to goal, he's the most average of average players when he's forced to play with his back to goal. In my opinion, he becomes
I don't know that I agree
incredibly
with that.
Average.
I think if he's looking for a quick layoff, I think he's pretty good with his
No, sure, that's fine. But
yeah.
if he has no support and if he has support that's coming and is on the way, and he's asked to hold the ball up just for a few seconds, he can't do it.
He
can't do it.
Well, and that, yeah, right. And if Red Bulls control the game, those guys are going to get forced back in defending. If Almiron's forced to come back and defend, they can't get it. I mean, I think it's more a matter of him just being isolated.
Yeah, no, and that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
My bigger issue with this is that you knew this was coming. You know that they're a likely candidate to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, which is obviously a goal of yours. You should have treated this like a playoff game, and you should have treated this like this was something you had to at least come away with a draw, or a win, whatever. However you wanted to approach this game, it should have been better than it looked.
But to me that falls on the players, because if you want to approach it as a playoff game where you have the advantage and that you can draw or win, the 3-5-2 has been Atlanta's more successful defensive formation all year. So I think that formation made total sense when you're going to a place where you can live with a point. I just thought it's a matter of the players losing 1v1 battles on the pitch. I just don't buy that there's some magical, I was going to say magical plan B. That's not going to go over well. I'm sure we could all use one of those. Am I right? But no, I just don't understand. Other than going to a back four, which would be a more aggressive, in a way a more aggressive stance where you're pressing high and trying to get the ball back. I thought this formation and the approach made total sense.
I just don't know if I would have even, if it's a back four, I would just assume some pressure, conceded possession, and force them. Because again, the games that Red Bulls do lose, they are asked to do things that they're not very comfortable doing. And one of the things is being in possession and building up from the back.
And that's one of the reasons they kind of will struggle with lesser teams sometimes.
Right. Because they're asked to do that because these other teams are going to defend. And when Atlanta United doesn't do that, I don't understand that goes against what Atlanta United does. But at some point, you got to look at, I mean, if you learn nothing from the Columbus game last year in the playoffs, is that your run in the playoffs could end very quickly. I know there's 2 games when it comes to Atlanta up until the finals, each round, but having a bad result like you did against the Red Bulls, that, I mean, you don't want to make your road to the finals that much tougher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You want to play as practical as possible. You want to play in a way that's going to help you win that one game scenario. And playing all out like Atlanta United does is not conducive in that situation.
If you want to call this all out, I mean, to me,
it wasn't even all out. I don't know what I don't know what to call it because it wasn't anything.
I thought it was.
It didn't seem organized.
You're right. But again, that to me is players. I don't think that. I don't know what Tata Martino does to make it so you can retain possession in the middle of the field. I mean, unless you want to go switch it up to long ball or switch the shape. Sometimes you just get.
It would have been nice to see something different that
that's fair.
Help produce something that you weren't seeing in the first half.
Let me ask you guys this: going forward, Chicago, the supporter shield is now up for grabs.
Yeah, we should probably.
Does this mentally affect Atlanta United? I know as a fan it hurts because now even if we win the shield, it's not going to feel as good because you lost twice.
I think the pressure's on.
So does this affect Atlanta United on the pitch the next 2 weekends at home against 2 teams you should beat New England?
I don't think it does. I mean, this team has shown in the past that it bounces back from losses very well.
So do you see anything, because Joe, you're there at training, do you see in terms of them responding from losses earlier in the season, do you see a similar attitude in terms of the response? Is there anything, or is it just kind of business as usual, or do you sense that there's maybe some nervousness?
No, for sure. I mean, like we talked about New England today with Michael Parkhurst and Jeff Lorenowitz, and they were like, they kind of were admitting that it was an eye-opener for them. And they are basically ready for, they said, for New England, they need to be ready for anything because they're like a dog backed into a corner, and this is basically their this is their Waterloo.
If they don't get 3 points this weekend, they're done.
Yeah. So and they said
for the playoffs.
They said honestly, New England could do anything. They could do something that we haven't seen all year because they got to do something to try to win this game. So I think that they're very well aware of the fact that, these games are super important, and I don't, they're not going to come in obviously take anyone lightly after what just happened there. I just don't see it.
And it will be hopefully maybe a chance to feel better about yourself because Brad Friedel likes the high pressure with New England. No one sells out in the high pressure the same way the Red Bulls do, but it is a chance to play against the same system kind of style you struggled with the previous weekend and maybe right some of the wrongs as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned that as well, saying that they'll be ready for a high press, and that New England likes to do a similar type of thing. New England was just not nearly as good as pulling it off, And it's one thing we just have to keep reminding ourselves about Red Bulls is that as bad as that game looked, and it was terrible, but that's why they're one of the best teams.
That's what they do, right? They take you out of your game.
Yeah, they're extremely extremely good, and that you're not going to see that kind of effectiveness out of what they did out of anyone else. Even though other teams might try to do something similar, no one's going to be able to pull it off to that level except for Red Bulls.
If you want to learn a little about New England, our next opponent lost to Toronto FC this past weekend. Drew against Chicago the weekend before. The week before that, drew against LAFC. Beat NYCFC on the 5th. Drew against Portland on the 1st of September. And the last loss before this past weekend was August 25th. So.
But they've been drawing, but they've been more or less in a free fall over the last couple months. They had a really good start to the season, and they've really struggled since. And they're not a particularly good road side. So I mean, it's almost exactly what you want after a really tough loss is to have a team come to you that struggles on the road, that's desperate, but they're going to come out and play for something. They're going to give you a real test, but it's a chance to get your confidence back up with a New England team that has everything to play for, but is let's be real. They're in a situation where they struggle historically on the road, and specifically, if we remember what happened to them when they came to Mercedes-Benz Stadium last year, we put up the touchdown on them.
This is gonna sound like it's a bit of a sidetrack, but have you guys ever heard of WagerTalk.com?
No.
It sounds like a betting website.
Okay.
But,
Mr. Joe Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
This is the preview for Atlanta United and
Mm-hmm.
New England.
Yep.
Who's on the cover there? Or who's on that little picture?
I wasn't even looking.
Who that is?
It's Yamil Assad
Yamil Assad.
playing against the Columbus Crew.
I'm not sure why I pulled this up, but I just thought it was
I
hilarious.
think we're required to mention Assad randomly every podcast. What about Shield though in general, right?
So Shield right now, 63 points for Atlanta United, 62 for the Red Bulls of New York. Atlanta United right now has New England coming up this week. They play Chicago at home, and they got to go to Toronto to play at Toronto. The Red Bulls, they play at San Jose, and they go on the road to Philadelphia. They play
at Philadelphia. That's a
San
tough one
Jose,
for them.
at Philadelphia, and then they got to play at home against Orlando.
So they got 2 pushovers and then Philadelphia in the middle. It would be hilarious if Orlando has a chance to
won us the Shield.
Yeah.
What if that was their?
Oh my gosh!
That was their second win.
Oh my! I can already see Darren Niels' tweets. Thank you.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Just a big thank you and a thumbs up.
That would be great.
That'd be glorious.
Considering they've won once. What in the last 4 or 5
I honestly
months,
think their fan base would be like rooting for the other team.
Oh.
For Red Bulls and that game.
Yeah. Like when USA put Mexico in the World Cup in 2014.
Yeah.
I was like, I kind of wish we just lost that one. But I don't know. I mean, if you look at the fixtures, like you said, Philly is a tough one for the Red Bulls. I think you mentioned this earlier, Joe. The Red Bulls have not won 3 straight all year, or they've only done it once or something.
I think that was
like
in Teodo Football's article.
Okay, yeah, right. That's what it was. Teodo always comes with the good numbers. But I mean, you've got to think that if Atlanta takes 6 points from these next 2, and they really, really should, that the onus is going to be on the Red Bull. I'm still personally confident Atlanta United win the Shield. Looking at the fixtures, looking at the Red Bulls are not a type of team they're going to rattle off 3-4 in a row for some of the reasons we've mentioned. I still think it's Atlanta United's Shield to lose 100%. But when you do win it,
my deal is that San Jose and Orlando don't have anything to play for. Philadelphia, I mean, they could easily get 6 points. I'm thinking 7 is what needs to happen for Atlanta United.
7 should get you there. It should, yeah.
I also just want 70 points.
Well, as we and that's the other interesting thing about this is you might go to Toronto on the last day of the season with the MLS points record on the line. Atlanta United on 63. Toronto has set the record with 69 last year. Oh, Joe, you didn't give me a funny look that time when I said 69. Okay. Did you see that? We were on the radio show and I say 69 points and he stares at me like a 10-year-old.
I didn't know if it was kosher to make the joke.
Well, don't do it when we're on the radio. You run the risk of me saying something I shouldn't live. But that's an interesting scenario too. I mean, we assume Toronto won't have anything to play for, but they might. I mean, their points record might be on the line that final match day of the season.
CCL standings right now: Atlanta United at 118, the Red Bulls at 112. That's 6 points apart for you mathematicians, and that could also be in some jeopardy.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you don't get a result this weekend.
Yeah, assuming things don't go the way that we hope they will. Do we think? I mean, just opinion-based question here. Do we think that Atlanta United ultimately gets the Shield? I know we got 3 weeks to. Well, we got more than that, don't we? Like 4 weeks?
Yeah, because next week is the international break.
Yeah.
I think they'll get it. I mean, I think they'll get it. Atlanta's record is just very good. And I really like the fact that we're playing Toronto on the last day of the season when, a lot of players are typically checked out at that point.
Is it weird for me to say that I think Toronto is going to be like the last playoff test for Atlanta United, assuming that they play the typical
It depends on the scenario. I mean, you'd like to think that the Shield is wrapped up by then, but I mean, I think that you do approach these last 3 matches as playoff games, but you approach them as playoff games where you're going for the win, not where you're trying to hold a lead, if that makes sense.
It very well could be wrapped up before that weekend because that's when
when United wins 2 and Red Bulls don't win at all.
Yeah, and Red Bulls have that toughest game that they have is against Philadelphia in the second to last week. So
I'm confident too. I think Atlanta United are going to win the Shield, but I will say one thing as a fan, it just sucks because it was going to feel so. I mean, Atlanta sports, it was going to feel so good to win a trophy, but now you're going to hopefully win a trophy, and also you're going to have in the back of your head, well, we lost to Red Bulls twice, who finished just behind us, and we're probably going to see them again in the postseason.
Yeah, it's going to be like a gnawing feeling in the back.
From a fan standpoint, it kind of puts a damper on it, but I'm pretty confident Atlanta wins the Shield, and the fans seem to be also. We put a little poll up on the Mouth South Twitter page. You can follow us at MOTS Podcast. Got close to 1,000 votes, and 77% say yes. So
that's the optimistic.
The fans seem confident, but if you want
that'll bring us down.
If you want some pessimism, just go through the replies, and there are some legitimate. I think qualms there with reason to believe Atlanta United won't win the Shield.
It's all about appeasing the dread god.
That's
all it is at this point. That's all it is. Watch, we're gonna win. The first opponent in the playoffs is gonna be DC United.
Well, that's a worry too.
And then it's all downhill.
That would be pretty terrifying.
All right. Any last thoughts before we check out? Anything we have not said?
We said our piece, I think, and
who wants to give the benediction here?
I would say one thing.
Josh?
Everyone relax. Everyone needs to relax. I'm not, after rewatching that Red Bulls game, I'm hearing, Atlanta United, they can't beat the Red Bulls. It's just the worst matchup. And I watched that back through, and I'm thinking just a few things go your way. Miggy finishes that early chance.
The refereeing was terrible.
The refereeing
I forgot to mention that. It was
diabolical. The first half especially.
Remember the penalty they called when they on Brad Guzan, they thought he hadn't touched the ball.
I've never seen a player so mad after it was reversed, because Guzan was like, "How did you miss that in real time?" You
could read his lips. What the F am I supposed to do? You could see him say that to the ref. It was like, what am I
don't think I've ever seen a call reversed without the referee even going to look at it.
That's how it should be done, though.
I think the VAR.
If you're gonna do it, it should be like that.
Whoever was VAR was just like,
that was clear.
Mr. Samiga, I don't think you even want to go look at this, because you're gonna lose total confidence in your ability to officiate a match.
I hope that those are the words.
But yeah, everyone calm down. I don't think the Red Bulls are this bugaboo that they're being made out to be. Even if you go to the first match, I mean, Atlanta United controlled a lot of the game. You had the Joseph Martinez goal that was controversially, although I tend to agree, disallowed. You had the soft penalty given just before halftime. I think Atlanta United are right there with New York Red Bulls, and I think that over a 2-leg series, you would expect them to play better than they did in New Jersey over the weekend. But I think they're right there with them, and then this kind of these kind of hot takes that Atlanta United cannot beat the New York Red Bulls. I just don't understand, based on what I've seen, rewatching the matches. I just don't see that there. I think the teams are very evenly matched, and it's going to be a great 2-leg tie, assuming they match up in the conference final.
I know many people that disagree with you, Josh.
Well, that's a surprise.
And I'll leave it with that.
Everyone always disagrees with me.
All right, you can find me at Eric G. Quintana on the Twitter. Find the podcast at MOTS Podcast. We're on Facebook, Mountain South Podcast, every Wednesday on the radio. Atlanta Sports X, 12:30 a.m., 106.3 FM. That's Atlanta's Sports X. You can find us on the app. We're on YouTube at 9 o'clock after that. In this case, we broke up into 2 different streams because I'm a dummy. And Josh?
You can find me on Twitter as well at JoshB914.
I'm at JAPatrick200. You can follow Dirty South Soccer at Dirty South Sock.
The SB Nation station for all things Atlanta United. Donate to the Patreon account, MOTS Podcast. No, sorry, patreon.com/MOTS Podcast. You can donate as little or as much as you want. Every little bit goes to making sure you guys get some cool prizes and giving us cool YouTube equipment and stuff. All right, anything else?
Let's go.
That's it.
All right, until next time. See you later, Atlanta.
Bye, everybody.
Bye!